When we begin the See Future Lab, we kept on asking ourselves, what is the meaning of this lab? As we enter a new age where technology has progressed to a stage that it affects every facet of the way we live. In 10 to 20 years' time, perhaps our life will be completely different. Cities will be planned differently to what it is now. So now I think it's time to question what we want for the future and how do we influence it. See Future Lab presents an opportunity for people like us, architects, planners, artists, designers, to test new ideas, shared and discussed to building the ultimate city of the future. At the same time, it provides inspiration for the See Future City. So our intention is to create an open laboratory. Visitors can explore their senses here and participate in different kinds of experiments. Rather than designing the space with clear functional requirements, we are a bit like a director of a film, creating a sequential experience for the visitor to explore their senses. In the lab, you will find the functions of an art gallery, co-working space, garden, discussion forum. Each space was designed to adapt to the ever-changing functional needs of the lab. Time Passage is the first space you will encounter as a visitor. We wanted to create a space that will stimulate curiosity, so we have made use of the lift lobby to create an experiential tunnel. By using projections, mirrors, and sound, here you will experience a space which is entirely different to the outside world. We collaborated with Moss. They have created a dynamic field of lines by the big data of Shenzhen. The ever-changing field will have interaction when you walk through it. At the end of the passage, the two automatic pivot doors will open slowly, and then you will see a glowing sculpture inside welcoming you. The whole experience is continuous and sequenced. In here, you will forget about the time and completely getting into the mood of the future lab. In the beginning of the design process, we were discussing what if, when you arrive at the lab, you were not greeted by the human receptionist, but rather an artificial object, like the idea of HAL in the movie Space Odyssey 2001. It is an artificial brain that will interact and speak to you. With today's technology, it is possible to achieve this into reality. So after we have this idea, we begin to think about how we want this object to look like. I immediately thought of the work of Ross Lovecraft, whom I admired a lot. His work usually had a very strong texture and form, which inspired by nature, but at the same time, it looks so futuristic. We think it would be a perfect match for the lab. So we invited him to participate in this project, and he promised straight away after we sent him the concept of the lab. Maybe he thought the notion of the lab would suit his work a lot. So we had video conference to exchange ideas. In the end, he has designed a very special organic object which has a gradual change of transparency and texture, almost like a sculptural form which has a life of its own. He wanted to use 3D printing so that the intricate texture and transparency can be achieved. The sculpture is being manufactured by Nagami from Spain. They are one of the cutting-edge 3D printing companies in the world. So after we have the form of sculpture, we started to look at the technology side of it, because we wanted sculpture to interact with the visitors. We planted a few projectors and sensors so that we could project animations onto the surface. Digital artist Moss has created a living organism which will be constantly evolving its form. We call it the cell. Its form will change and interact with the hand movement of the visitors. We all love it when we see the sculpture completed, because it is unique and its effect changes through time. It redefines a traditional form of reception space and will stimulate curiosity for the visitors. creative hub is one of the largest spaces inside the Sea Future Lab. It carries different functions. It could be a lecture space for about 100 people. It could also transform into a digital art exhibition. We propose to use a hexagonal module ceiling tiles. Some of them are sound baffles, and some of them are lights. In here, we want that people can discover the story of the Sea Future City. Moss has specifically created a 24-meter-long panoramic collage, where you will see the transformation of the Changsha area, from an urban village to the Sea Future City. In the beginning, we wanted there would be a space in the Future Lab which is more focused on nature. We think it will create an interesting chemistry with the technology side of the lab. We think space design in the future should not be all about technology like a sci-fi movie. There are ways to integrate art and nature in a new perspective, and that is why we have the idea of the hanging garden. Having the opportunity to work with Patrick Long is an amazing experience. Over the years, we learned through his work that plants can be grown in many different ways, other than just from the garden. So we designed a flying strip, a strip that allows plants to grow. It travels around the ceiling and then extends to the water pond on the outside. It is a simple idea, but in fact, it is very difficult to achieve, because the plants will need an automatic irrigation system. Otherwise, there is no chance for them to survive. We work with RFR for the steel structure, and the complicated shape will need to be manufactured in the factory. Then the continuous strip will divide it into several parts and assemble on site. When we see Patrick's hand script for the first time, we were all amazed. It actually outlined all the plant species and their position on the strip in great detail. It's all inside his head. The local team can then follow his script to plant the species on site. We chose a very reflective stone for the floor, so that it created a nice mirror effect for the hanging garden. The final result is very unique. There is a nice harmony between the nature and the artificial. And the plants will keep on growing. Maybe one day the plants will touch the floor, and we will look forward to it. The LABYRINTH is a space that exhibits the Sea Future City. As we know the project very well, having worked on it for so many years, we wanted to show the visitors that there are many different facets of the project in a multi-dimensional way, rather than a linear way. Because its location is right next to the hanging garden, so we wanted it to be an extension of the landscape. Our idea is to create something like a pixelated landscape, stacking the monitor boxes into the form of green slope. When people walk through the space, they will find themselves surrounded by layers and layers of information of the Sea Future City in a multi-dimensional way. There are in total 160 monitors. They are installed in boxes, each with a hidden mini CPU. It could be separated in many pictures, or combined into one very large single picture. There are infinite possibilities. It is rather complicated to realize this idea into reality. We have a team which built the structure of the boxes, and then another team to deal with all the technical issues, like writing the software, wiring, etc. Not to mention that all these will need to be tested on site many times. It is very exciting to see the outcome of the LABYRINTH. I think it has a very good chemistry with the hanging garden. The cluster of the monitors create a very rich picture itself. In a split second, people can receive lots of information about the Sea Future City. In the future, we hope we will invite different artists to display their work here. Perhaps it will have a very different result than the other exhibition space. I think all these unknown factors is what interests us the most. When Linus told us that he wanted to have an area in the lab where they can do workshops, we designed the studio. It combines the function of office, meeting rooms, co-working space, a bar, and a design forum space. We would like to have a long table in the center of the studio. It could be used as a co-working space or become a bar of the lab in the evening. So we invited Ross Lovegrove to design this table, and this is how he responded. For us, it is more like an art piece rather than just a piece of furniture. The support of the table is made out of a surface with many undulations, which create a very interesting form. The pendant lamp and the benches are also beautifully designed in a holistic way. The whole length of the table is 5 meters long, and the structure was 3D printed by Nagami. Because of its size, it has to be divided into 3 modules for transportation from Spain to China. Because of the pandemic, this became the final piece of installation in the lab. Although it has a clear function, in fact, it is more like a piece of sculpture. It is the first and only one to be produced in the whole world, specifically designed for the Sea Future Lab. I think the biggest reward for doing the Sea Future Lab is that we could do something that we never done before. It was an unknown journey from the beginning to the end. What's different in this project is that the client has given us a lot of space to create and to experiment. We also have the opportunity to collaborate with some of the best designers, artists, botanists in the whole world. Together, we brainstorm ideas and to co-design some truly unique installations. Throughout this design journey, we have discovered that we could question and rethink many aspects in how we live and how we work. Being able to see the final result comes to life is magical. We hope the Sea Future Lab is only the beginning to inspire people experimenting and designing for the future.